I think it's fair to say that the release of Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy The Definitive Edition hasn't necessarily gone according to Rockstar's plan, with many people complaining about the quality of the remasters, from bug issues to the fact that the game didn't even release on PC until a few days after it actually released, due to the Rockstar Games launcher being taken offline for over a full day because of files left in the games on release that shouldn't have been there. And then there's the issue of the whole janky, jarring feeling to the remasters as is, such as the rain, there's no nice way to put this, looks like shit, or the defogging of the GTA San Andreas map to the point where you can literally see the whole world and where it cuts off, completely killing the feeling of a massive world space. Granted, there are visual improvements, I'm sure of that, however these aren't quite the remasters that people had hoped for from Rockstar Games, and considering the asking price on launch, people aren't happy, and understandably so. And then there's the whole piss take of Rockstar initially pulling the original versions of these games from online stores so that people would have to buy these remasters, essentially making the only option to buy these games paying full AAA price almost for a bundle of 20-year-old games. Well, today Rockstar Games released a Newswire article acknowledging the unexpected technical issues with Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy The Definitive Edition. Firstly, I want to say unexpected my ass. You don't just launch a game and then realise that it's full of issues. Those issues are going to be present. If you playtest it adequately, you are going to find a lot of them, not necessarily all of them, but shit like jarring camera angles and rain that looks like a bag of dicks would definitely not fly under the radar. As for codes left in the PC version of the game that shouldn't have been there, that's another thing that surely somebody should have noticed, especially considering we're talking about a company that generated a profit of at least $1 billion in 2020. Sometimes disastrous launches are unexpected, but in this case I somehow doubt that's entirely true. Anyway, in this Newswire article, Rockstar Games had the following to say. Hi everyone, we want to provide an update regarding the unexpected technical issues that came to light as part of the launch of Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy The Definitive Edition. Firstly, we want to sincerely apologise to everyone who has encountered issues playing these games. Grand Theft Auto series and the games that make up this iconic trilogy are as special to us as we know they are to fans around the world. The updated versions of these classic games did not launch in a state that meets our own standards of quality or the standards our fans have come to expect. We have ongoing plans to address the technical issues and to improve each game going forward. With each planned update, the games will reach the level of quality that they deserve to be. A new title update is on the way in the coming days for all versions of Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy The Definitive Edition that will address a number of issues. We will update everyone as soon as it is live. In the meantime, it pains us to mention that we're hearing reports of members of the development teams being harassed on social media. We would kindly ask our community to please maintain a respectful and civil discourse around this release as we work through these issues. While one of the goals of the Definitive Editions was to allow players to enjoy these games on modern platforms for many years to come, we also understand that some of you would still like to have the previous classic versions available for purchase. We will be adding the classic PC versions of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City and San Andreas back to the Rockstar store shortly as a bundle. Additionally, everyone who has purchased Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy The Definitive Edition for PC from the Rockstar store through June 30th, 2022 will receive these classic versions in their Rockstar Games launcher library at no additional cost. We will update everyone as soon as these are back in the Rockstar store. Once again, we'd like to thank everyone for their patience and understanding while we work through these updates to ensure these games meet everyone's justifiably high standards. We'll get this one out of the way right away. It's never acceptable to target individual developers to take your frustrations out on, because that's just simply not fair to do. You may be angry with the quality of the product that you've purchased, and you're within your right to be angry about that, but you can't be taking that out on individuals because that's just simply not cricket. Okay, now onto the actual points I want to make. These remasters shouldn't have been released until they were absolutely ready, and it just doesn't seem as if they were. So slapping a ridiculous asking price on 20-year-old games with slight visual improvements is one thing, but then releasing the game in a state that isn't finished and saying, we appreciate your patience and understanding, we will fix it eventually, we don't know when, I just don't think that's necessarily something that is warranting of patience and understanding. It's good that Rockstar is now going to keep selling the original versions of these games on PC, as I think they should. You can't take away somebody's right to experience the original version of the game if that's what they so wish to do. Remasters are all well and good, but sometimes they just aren't worth the money that you ask for them, whereas the old game will be down to a low price and you can enjoy that game as it was when it released, and I feel like players should be entitled to purchasing that experience. Whether or not they played the games in the past is completely irrelevant. Another part of this Newswire article that really peeved me a bit was Rockstar saying that the updated versions of these classic games did not launch in a state that meets our own standards of quality or the standards our fans have come to expect. For me, this just seems a bit like PR fluff. It indicates that you either knew going in that you were releasing these games in a substandard quality, or it's completely reactionary, and honestly the response, whichever way you cut it, just doesn't feel necessarily sincere. Nor does labelling the issues this release has sustained as unexpected, because I just can't see a world in which that's actually the case. Furthermore, we get no real time frame on when we can expect these games to reach everybody's justifiably high standards, as Rockstar puts it, and usually that's because the surest way to do that is to provide a release date. However, these remasters have already released in an arguably substandard condition, and so nobody owes these products the time of day to wait for them to improve. Don't get me wrong, I do see some form of desire to make this right from Rockstar's part. However, as much as I may love Rockstar's games, you've always got to remember that big companies are not your friends. At their core, they will seldom have the consumer's best interests at heart. And when it comes to crappy releases, players have seen this time and time again, where releases of games, doesn't matter from where, have not been up to snuff, and there's really no telling as to whether or not it's possible to make a comeback from that, and sometimes the damage is already done and it's just not profitable, so why bother? I don't doubt that the people who actually develop these games as individuals in an ideal world would make this right in a heartbeat. However, it's important to also understand that none of these sentences change the state of the game right now. That's still the product that's in front of us, and it's important to not lose sight of that, because until that changes, at the very least, a publisher releasing a statement is just a publisher releasing a statement. Promises that may be made in that mean nothing, because it's very important to remember that if that's not in the best interest of the company, then they will have no qualms just dropping the idea of improving this at all. Now, I don't like ragging on Rockstar. I have a lot of respect for Rockstar's games, but there is no company in the games industry that is not above disappointing its player base, whether that be by some self-destructive intent or by complete accident, and that's why it's important to approach this with a level head. Do we owe Rockstar the benefit of the doubt based on the quality of games they've previously released? Maybe, maybe not. But you got to remember, with an individual product you're paying money for, all that matters is you get the product you paid for. Previous goodwill's completely irrelevant, don't get me wrong, it goes a long way in making sure that it's not completely tarnished, but it just isn't something that I'd get caught up in fixating on, because in the end of the day, the consumer deserves the product that they paid for. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. I'm sure Rockstar will work on making sure that these remasters are improved, but it's very important to remember that nobody owes these remasters the patience to get it right, which is something a lot of consumers and publishers alike lose sight of, which is why I feel like it's more important to get it right the first time when it comes to dealing with things that people are paying for, than to potentially get it right eventually, even though there's no promise that that will actually happen. However, yes, sometimes things do just go wrong, and that's just the way of games these days. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff. That would be super fantastic. And with any luck, I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point. But until next time, take care and goodbye.